Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this double time spotlight card. It's got a second layer which matches up with the layer underneath. The only advice I would give is the designer series paper you use, or if you hand stamp a layer to use, it needs to be sort of quite busy so you can see where the pieces match up. This one only just caught a few of them, and actually this was going to be a square, the greeting, and I had to scrunch it down a little bit to be just a banner so it didn't obscure this underneath one. So you get the idea. It looks like it's lifted up, but it's the same pattern. It's quite easy to do, so I'll put them off to one side. This is the one that we're going to make today using the 24-26 in color designer series paper. So without further delay, here are the ingredients. So it's a piece of petunia pop, and it's 11 by 4 1/4 scored at 5.5. That's a pretty standard size, fits nicely in a regular envelope. And then there is the white layer that goes inside, which is just a 1/4 inch smaller, and that is 4 by 5 1/4. There are a few 8ths in this card. I think the one I very first ever did had 1/4s, but I felt if I cut it down to 1/8 inches, you could see more of the continuation of the pattern. But that's the card base, 11 by 4 1/4, scored in half, the inside put in. And these are the ingredients that we need to make the front. So the designer series paper is 3.5 by 4 1/2. The basic white is 3, well, no, I cut it down, didn't I? It's 3 1/8 by 4 5/8, and the little piece of basic white is 1 7/8 by 3 1/8. Like I say, it's only 1/8 of an inch smaller. So this is the piece we have to work with first. So let me bring in the paper trimmer, and I'll probably be standing up, so I'll get closer to the camera overhead, so it might make me be a little bit loud. So we're going to put the 4 1/2 inch side into the paper trimmer and line it up at 3/4 of an inch. And then we're going to cut down to 1 3/4 inches. And you can see that marked here on the paper trimmer. And in fact, I'm going to start at 1 3/4 inches and cut up. And then I'm going to turn the paper over again, put it at 3/4 of an inch, put the paper cutter in at 1 3/4. Let me just make sure I've got it in the right place, don't want it to move. At 1 3/4 inches and cut up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut between those two score marks, cut marks rather. So I'm going to line it up at 1 3/4, and I'm going to cut between this cut line and this cut line, and hopefully this should pull that little piece out. Sometimes you just need to give it a little tweak if it catches on the corner. So sit back down now, no more shouting. And then we've got the two pieces that will fit into each other. And then what we need to do, in order that we can have this little offset look to it, we need to cut a little piece off this. So it was 3 1/2 inches. You do the measuring first, otherwise you would just automatically cut it at 3 inches. Then I'm going to line it up at 3 inches on the paper cutter and just cut. I'll do it going upwards. Cut 1/2 inch off these little legs. So we've got these little 2 inch, these little 2 3/4 of an inch pieces that we don't need anymore, so they can just go off into the distance. And now these two pieces will fit onto the underneath layer. And in this instance, I used basic white just because I feel it brings the color of the white of the designer series paper out. So I'm just going to make sure that they fit. Sometimes it just needs, a little trim, but in this instance, not. And then we'll put some adhesive, on the back side. And put it on its layer. with just the 1/8 of an inch surround, and then we'll do the same with the piece that we trimmed out. All the directions and dimensions, as usual, will be on my blog, so you don't have to worry about the sizes as we go along and write them down or anything. They'll all be listed out for you, and I'll put a reminder about the step of cutting the 2 little sticks of this one. So that is the pieces made. And remember I said in the beginning I was going to do a little square and put it here, but I felt it sort of obscured one of the places where you could see the pattern continued. So what I did was I actually cut it in half and decided I would change the greeting. The greeting I'm using is from Simply Said. I was going to do just a note on a diagonal, and I didn't want to hide too much of the technique. So I'm bringing the Petunia Pop ink pad, and I'm going to stamp it just in the bottom left hand corner of this piece of basic white. And then I need to bring the paper trimmer back in and just trim it. So I'm going to trim it to 5/8. So there's measurements on this side, 5/8 of an inch. It doesn't have to be this, of course. This is just the measurement that I used. You can use whichever measurements you are most comfortable with. But there we have it. That's 5/8 of an inch. And then I am going to banner the ends, and we do that by cutting up the middle and then cutting from the corner to that middle point. And if you cut it up the middle first, you more or less know that you've got a pretty good attempt at an even banner. And this piece, this was 5/8, so I'm now going to cut this at 6/8, which for us math geniuses we know is 3/4 of an inch. Just because then it's a 1/8 of an inch layer around, the same as the pieces on the main body. So we'll pop those on there. Actually, I think I am going to just trim a little bit off the back. Like I say, I'm sort of making this on the fly. You can make yours fit or use whatever measurements you want. I did aim for that, but sometimes it doesn't always work out when you're using measurements that are quite small. So again, we'll cut up the middle and then go from the point to that middle, and from this edge to the middle. Oops, little Alyson. Yeah, it's a good job I just invent these things as I go along. But anyway, there you see we have, it's a little bit gnarly. It's harder to do it when you're feeling watched. So we'll just pop that on there, and now it's got the border around, and then we can go ahead and build the card. So the main piece, the big piece, we'll put over to the left of the card. So it's sort of even top and bottom, but it has about 1/4 of an inch on the left hand side. And then this is the piece that will overlap and the patterns will match up, but we're going to attach those with dimensionals. So just pop a few of those on. Put one in each corner and then one in the middle for good luck. Peel the backing papers off. The old fling it across the room ploy. And then we're going to line those up with just the 1/8 of an inch. And you can use the pattern of whatever's on your designer series paper to help you achieve that. And then you've got a nice continuation of the pattern. And because we moved it over, it came, you know, where it came out of, that's why we cut those little leg extension pieces off. And then I'm just going to pop a couple of dimensionals on the back of the banner greeting, but it only needs to be over to the left because this is already raised up and it's going to reach over there. And if you put another dimension, it would sort of like be sticking double high, and we don't really want that. So we'll pop it on, and then we'll put it where you can still see a little, actually this one, a sample I put at the top, as long as you can see some of the pattern of this flower. And then these big ones sort of, you know, they make their own way in the world. And there you have it. So there's the two of the 24-26 in colour. I'll bring back in the one that I made using the Thoughtful Journey with the Lost Lagoon paper. So, you know, any 6x6 or any designer series paper that you have will make a really nice card. Like I say, my only advice would be to use a pattern that's fairly busy, so you can actually see where the continuation goes. If you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up. That keeps my algorithm busy so I can bring more videos to you. All the directions and dimensions, of course, and any pertinent information will be on my blog, so you could pop on over there and check those out. If you have a question or a comment, stick those in the box below and I will always do my best to get back to you. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching.